It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say, your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
In the spirit of reconciliation, the Theatre Thoughts podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all traditional custodians of the land on which our episodes are recorded.
We had a week of music rehearsals, which was like necessary, and everyone got to see each other's moments. And
Okay.
because I was in the room for some of it, and you see Carla responding to seeing Grace singing No One Else for the
No
first
way.
time, or Grace responding to seeing Carla sing Sonia Alone, or hearing Zoe Frangos sing Dust and Ashes. And
Oh, wow.
it was such an amazing moment that everyone could be like, oh, wow. Like, I loved you
the
before, but
talent.
wow.
It was like from day dot, like everyone opened their page and they were already playing the score. And I was like, oh my God, I was shocked. I played the tambourine. That's my
That would be
contribution.
I'd be the triangle or something.
Welcome back to a new episode of the Theatre Thoughts podcast, hosted by myself, Justin Clark, and featuring an array of Australia's best and brightest in the theatre industry and beyond. You can get full access to the podcast by signing up to our monthly email and joining the Theatre Thoughts Patreon community for as little as $3 a month. All the details can be found by heading over to our Instagram account at TheatreThoughtsAUS or our official podcast Instagram at TTPod_official. Let us know what you think of this episode by giving us a rating wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome everyone to a very special episode of the Theatre Thoughts podcast. I've come out of the studio today to talk to two amazing creatives who are involved with a brand new musical coming to Sydney. So first of all, we have a very in-demand creative with over 2 decades of experience in the industry who studied at WAPA and VCA and has worked on over 20 national tours. Most recently was the resident director of Hamilton for Australia and New Zealand, has directed and acclaimed productions of Bear and Memphis the Musical, and is the co-artistic director of the Stephen Sondheim Repertory Company. Watch this. It's Dean Drieberg. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then, of course, we have, hailing from the Gold Coast, Queensland, a performer who obtained a Diploma of Musical Theatre from NIDA in 2018, part of Squabbalogic's Australian-made concert at Seymour Centre in 2021 before going on tour with West Side Story for Opera Australia in the role of Rosalie. It's Grace Driscoll. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh, sorry, my voice just popped in. That was awkward. How are you both?
Good. I mean, we've just finished a very long day of rehearsing a lot
thank you
of
so much for
things.
coming on.
Oh, no, so good. So, I think we're tired.
We're tired but excited and happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great. And so it's obviously the production we're talking about is Natasha, Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812.
Ooh, all in one breath. Well done.
I know. Woo, my. So I guess the first thing I want to ask is about the production itself, because this is relatively new in terms of like the musical theatre world. I guess the one that people would know it from is from Broadway with Josh Groban, who was in it. And so could you kind of just, like, I guess, give me a short snapshot of the show for context?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Do you want, I can talk about what the show is and maybe you can talk about what the story is.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So it kind of originated, it's a section of War and Peace. I think it's like 72 out of, I don't know, 1,200 and something pages. So it's a section of War and Peace that has been turned into a musical, but in a really clever way where it's using folk and electropop and techno and contemporary music styles to tell the story.
Yeah.
And it was originally played in a 85-seat theatre, black box theatre downtown.
Yeah.
And then moved into a custom-built tent and then eventually ended up on Broadway.
Right, okay.
And this is the Australian premiere of the work.
Which is very exciting.
Yeah, it's had a lot of different lives before coming here. But the story centres on the 70-page portion of the novel. It features Pierre, who's kind of one of the main characters of the pieces. He's like going through an existential crisis and just like questioning life, I suppose. And it also follows Natasha, who becomes embroiled in an affair.
Ooh, saucy.
Scandalous. Yeah, very scandalous for 1812, with a character named Anatole Karagan. So, there's a host of really crazy, cool characters. The music really ties into the piece. It's fully sung through as well, which is really fascinating and exciting. You just come see it. It's something different. It's definitely
it's not like any other musical.
Non-traditional, non-commercial theatre, and that's kind of how it was born as well.
I think the one that sticks in my head is the one video I saw, the sneaky bootleg version of the opening number on Broadway, where it's the prologue and introduces every single character.
Yeah.
For some reason, it just I love that song so much. When I was I added it to my Broadway soundtrack when I'm driving, and I tried to get it right in my head. I was like, Anatole, Natasha, and and so it's a nice little intro to the show, because I guess it can be a little bit confusing in terms of how many characters in the plot and so on.
Yeah, and
so it's a clever tool.
Some of the show is, the way that we're building it is definitely in a much more ensemble way. Definitely, Pierre and Natasha are very central characters, but every person gets a moment, every person gets a song. Yeah, totally. And so it's just that opening prologue moment is a good way to introduce all these people that you're going to meet. And some of them you only meet them once, so you'll remember them very easily.
And that piece in particular was written, the author Dave Malloy, who wrote the show, was written because they were like, how do we quickly and succinctly get into this world that we want our audience to be in, and also tell them that they're in for a long night with a bit of satire as well, it's a complicated Russian novel.
Very
it's
complicated.
Very much. It's basically the song is the 12 Days of Christmas. But done with the characters.
Oh my god, I never thought of it like that.
Yeah,
of course it is.
Yeah, it's the same kind of framework, and so by the time you get to the end of the song and you've repeated the names enough, you know who they are, and then one word to describe them. Except for Pierre, who gets a whole 3-minute song because he's very complex.
Complex character. So Dean, you're directing this version, and I want to jump on something you just said about the ensemble kind of element to it. One thing I wanted to ask was, did your time working on Hamilton, is that kind of where you're drawing a lot of inspiration from? Because that's a very ensemble-driven show as well. Yeah,
I'd say more so than Hamilton, because Hamilton still has principals, and then there are the ensemble. This is a lot more blended, and we don't have an ensemble of dancers that aren't featured. Every single person on the stage has a moment. They're all named characters, and people are a lot more active in scenes, even if there's only a couple of people singing, or what seems to be only a couple of people focused in a scene. The ensemble is still working to kind of create that scene. And sometimes, the lines are blurred as to, are they still that character, or are they now, townsfolk number 3?
Right.
So, and in our production as well, all the actors playing the music as well. So
that's probably
how do musicians.
We only get to this so far into the podcast.
It is my favourite trend that's come out of musical theatre in recent years is the actor musician. I think it is perfect.
And I think we did it originally as, this is a great way to approach this work, but then once it's a really hard score.
Yeah, that's real difficult.
But the creative team have chosen some incredible artists from all over the country, actually, to fulfill these roles, and they're smashing it.
Not everyone is a music theatre person either. A lot of people have done other things that give them the skills to do music theatre, but they haven't necessarily done a musical before.
Okay.
And that makes it so much more interesting as well. And I think with
Yeah.
the styles of music, it works really well.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally.
And so, do you want to talk a little bit about your character?
Yeah. So Natasha, she's pretty similar to in the novel. So she's described as being young. That's like her first main descriptor. And throughout the piece, I would say she kind of goes in this journey from like girlhood to womanhood, I would say.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and she just obviously with the affair that she
Yeah.
becomes entangled in, that kind of speeds that up, and she just kind of learns, for me, she learns the meaning of unconditional love.
Right.
Through, I suppose, the characters that she ignores for most of the show.
Yeah.
And then at the end she kind of learns and realizes that, for me. So yeah, she's very, very fun to play because she has so many different facets to her, and that journey in particular is it's just got so many different layers, and there's so many different relationships with each of the characters
so
that
cool.
bring out a different side in her.
And I think you also bring more out of the character than what's on the page as well, because she can be very two-dimensional.
Okay.
But I think Grace has such a facility to like show emotion and show a real journey that, for me, like, I haven't seen the original production. I've only ever heard the soundtrack, but already just what's, on the page, I'm feeling like Grace has so much more range and makes her way more relatable and three-dimensional and yeah.
It's just interesting because she definitely does start as like young, naive girl, which is such a trope. That you can play into, but that's part of the journey, and then the as it progresses, and then Act 2, all these other layers come out. So it is really fascinating.
That's so cool. I actually bumped into Carla Gare in Melbourne when I was down there. I went to see the Emerging Musical Writers program they had, which was incredible. But yeah, we had a little quick chat about it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited to see you. So you have like an amazing cast as well, like you said, like from all over the spectrum.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a week of music rehearsals, which was like necessary, and everyone got to see each other's moments. And
Okay.
because I was in the room for some of it, and you see Carla responding to seeing Grace singing No One Else for the first time, or Grace responding to seeing Carla sing Sonia Alone, or hearing Zoe Frangos sing Dust and Ashes. And
Oh, wow.
it was such an amazing moment that everyone could be like, oh, wow. Like, I loved you before, but wow.
It was like from day dot, like everyone opened their page and they were already playing the score. And I was like, oh my God, I was shocked. I played the tambourine. That's my contribution.
I'd be the triangle or something.
the tambourine.
And you play a bit of...
a bit of glockenspiel.
Oh, there
as
you
well.
go. That's okay.
I'm just, consistently floored with who these creatives were able to find. And everyone is just so perfect. And it's...
I feel like shows like this, I often say, like, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in like a professional rehearsal, and I just love to just sit there and just be like, just kind of watching and taking everything in, because like acting, musicians, sort of performances, and the way you've spoken about it as well, just seems fascinating to me. It's something that I would just like can never comprehend in my mind. And I love it. I love seeing it on stage.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from, with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere, and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses. So don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
One thing I did want to ask, why this one and why now?
That's how I start every creative process.
Yeah.
It's literally those two questions.
That's awesome.
I had come across the piece. I remember reading about it and seeing images when it was off Broadway. And this is probably once it was in the tent, and reading about this, immersive production and how it used different music styles, and it was about a historic piece. And I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting. And then I was in New York and it had closed, so I missed it, and friends had seen it and they're like, it's incredible. And then it went to Broadway. But again, I missed it. Like every time I was there, it had just one version had closed. So I never got to see it.
Yeah.
And then that Broadway version was very short-lived. So my first experience with it was listening to the soundtrack. And I just remember hearing it, thinking, oh, I'll never see this show. So I'll listen to it and see what it's about. And I was really drawn in by the music, firstly, and how innovative it was to use a score. Like so much so, there was a point when I was listening to it and I thought that I'd like, you know how your Apple Music is playing something and then it finishes and it skips to something else?
Yes.
I thought that had happened because all of a sudden was this like different style of music that I'm like, this
I know
can't
exactly
possibly
what
be...
you're talking about because I thought that from the prologue to Pierre's first song. I was like, this doesn't connect, surely.
Yeah.
No, sorry, continue.
It was just such a stylistic leap and I was like, oh no, this is all in the one show. And that kind of, I was really interested in how you could do that in a show and still make it cohesive. And it completely is when you go on the journey of it. And the choice of music is very specific.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the music becomes electronic all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You got to come and see the show to find out why.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give it away. But that made me interested in it. And I was pitching, I wanted to direct something for Darlinghurst Theatre Company. And that was on the list. And I didn't think they'd go for it because they had done once. And I'm like, they wouldn't do another actor muso show, but I'd pitched it as an actor muso show. And then, the Darlinghurst were like, Natasha, Pierre and the Great Comet, do you want to do it? And I was like,
which is amazing.
Absolutely.
We have to shout out to Darlinghurst Theatre Company for programming. Something like that needed a second life after its Broadway.
Yeah, and especially something new because we're dying for new things. I know I am personally, I'm just dying for new things to come.
Yeah, and it almost was one of those things that kind of passed over.
Yes.
I was obsessed with this show when I was studying musical theatre. I think what drew me originally was the young woman of colour lead. Back when it had Philippa Sue in it, and I remember like the day that the Broadway cast was released with Danae Benton, me and my friends were driving to like theatre practice, and we like put it on straight away.
Okay.
Like that's how obsessed we were with it.
That's amazing.
And like, it's just so exciting that it's having a second life here in Australia, and shout out to Darlinghurst because they rock and they're amazing, and let's keep that up.
More programming of works like this. And
Did you want to talk, Grace, quickly about, I guess, like your background coming up to this? Because you've had I was like doing my research like before I come, and I was just like, you've had fascinating like couple of years, like leading up to this point. Yeah,
I mean, this is certainly like kind of the next step, I would say, career-wise, which is really exciting. I started on the Gold Coast and then I studied over at NIDA in 2018. And from there, I just kind of hustled and heard a lot of no's, as a lot of people do when they finish uni.
Yeah.
And then I got my first job, which was The Secret Garden.
Yes.
Which was, of course, cancelled because of COVID.
Yeah, I think actually I was at the media day for that.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, I cried. I cried the media day.
Yeah, no, don't blame
But it was actually a really interesting year, 2020, because I got to meet Dean.
Yeah, we've got a backstory.
Yeah,
we've got
a backstory.
Love that.
Over Zoom, actually. It was a while until we met each other. But I got to meet people like Dean and so many other amazing creatives and artists that year. So it actually was quite a pivotal year, 2020. And since then, I kind of just toured with a few shows, West Side Story, Go from North Country, and then came back to Sydney, and then this popped up, which is, incredibly exciting. It's basically a dream role, a dream show. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you again to Darlinghurst and to everyone. Like, it really takes a village, as we know with these things. It takes a vision, and it takes money. And it takes so many different creatives and the people that Dean has assembled as well in terms of like design.
I mean, the first person when Darlinghurst were like, yep, we're going to do this.
Yeah.
The first person I thought to cast was Grace.
No way.
Like literally when I was like, who, you always try and wish list it when you're casting a show.
Yeah.
And starting with Natasha, like who can play Natasha? And I couldn't get past Grace because I'd known her as an artist and I'd seen her perform, and I knew vocally there is a song called No One Else, and literally there is no one else can sing No One Else like Grace. So it was like an immediate thing of like, I would love to work with Grace, and we'd known each other and done like little things, but nothing of this scale together, and obviously wanted to. So I'm like, Grace, can you audition for this show?
And I was like, absolutely screaming internally.
But
also to have that incredible trust, like from Dean as a director straight off the bat has, just upped my confidence and my kind of ownership of the role in the show. And it's really exciting to feel so, empowered.
Yeah,
but again, it takes a village.
Yeah, it's a lot of people working on these things, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
and I guess, Dean, with your background as well, I mean, how do you summarize like yours in the space of a podcast, I suppose?
Yeah, my whole life story. And it's funny because I feel like my life has been these two separate things that one led to the other, because I started as a performer originally, and I used to perform professionally when I was in high school, as a kid, and I was touring and doing TV and all of that. And that was, I was very kind of focused on being a performer, and I studied music theatre at WAPA for a year, and I went to VCA and I did shows, and then it was like the inconsistency of work as a performer, which led me to think about how else I could make a way into this industry, and that was behind the scenes.
Right,
and it then took a while for me to get to directing, because I was trying other things like being a producer. And, and I thought that was what I wanted to do, but it wasn't creative enough for me, and it didn't feel that same desire that I had, or the same kind of creative outlet that I had as a performer.
Yeah.
And it was working in the room with so many great directors that I was like, that is what I want to do. And I got an opportunity to start directing, and it really just snowballed. And it was like I did one show, and that led me to be booked for another show and another show and another show. And next minute it's we're here doing Natasha, Pierre and the Great Comet.
Which, like, having Dean occupy those spaces as well is absolutely amazing. Like, he knows that he's been like so instrumental for so many people's successes, especially young artists. I hope you do, though. I hope you know. Like, I don't
think our heads are going to leave the door. Like, this is kind of blowing up.
No, truly. But your impact is incredible and so far reaching. Like, even to have you behind that table on a panel and then working with you on the floor is amazing. And you should be booked for everything. Never stop working.
Yeah, please book me.
I hope. I didn't know you before. I love that. That's do that as well. But also having you in those directorial spaces is it's.
I do think some of the best directors are the ones that have stage experience.
Yeah.
Because they can see it from both angles, I suppose. Yeah.
And also having because I've produced shows as well, so I kind of get that organizational logistic side. I've done marketing, so I do understand
everything,
all the sides of the beast. So that does inform your process and how you do work in the room.
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the next questions I want to kind of segue into, there's one big one I've been asking, but I want to save that to last. I'd love to know, like, speaking about careers, your favourite production or anything you've been involved in that has stuck with you as like, this was truly special to me.
This one? Is it too early to say?
Yes,
Never too early.
I agree. This one definitely. One of my favourites was actually here in Sydney. It was after I just graduated. It was production at the New Theatre.
Oh, cool.
Called Meet Me in St. Louis.
Oh, like the Judy Garland musical.
The Judy Garland musical.
Oh, wow.
And it was the first time that I auditioned for something that had like a legit sound, which is where my voice, which is my home base, and they'd already cast the lead actor, who is now one of my like very close friends, and she was white, and so I came in and I was like, oh look, I really want this role, but like I'm supposed to be her sister, so I don't know if this is gonna, I don't know what they're gonna do with this. I ended up booking the role.
That's
and
so cool.
Yeah, it was like a really affirming moment of like, oh no, my talent could kind of, my talent was enough in that space. And I also made some amazing like long-term friends. So it's
I love that.
Such a pivotal moment. Was unpaid
over
Christmas. It was just wholesome and beautiful.
Those are the best jobs sometimes, right?
Sometimes they are. Hey?
You gotta love it if you're not getting paid.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, recently, I mean, every time I work on a show, there's something really special about it. It's hard to like choose your favorite child.
Yeah.
But I directed the Australian premiere of a musical called Passing Strange last year.
Right, yes.
Which is another like non-conventional. I love non-conventional musicals.
Go for it.
It was it was written by a punk rock musician and semi-autobiographical and about his life growing up in America and then taking like an artistic journey to find himself, and went to Europe and experimented with lots of different vices.
Okay.
And it was this amazing show, again, like Natasha, Pierre, that I'd heard about after it had closed, became obsessed with it and was like, no one's ever going to produce this. And sure enough, a company in Melbourne, Antipodes Theatre Company, approached me to direct it, and I worked with an incredible team. We had a full team, the entire creative team were people of colour. All of our casts, we had a full black African diasporic cast. And it was just creating something, because it was such a non-conventional show. As a director, my staging of it was also very non-conventional. It was gig theatre, essentially, where we had the band was in the centre of the stage and the cast kind of moved around the band. People picked up instruments.
That's cool.
And yeah, it was like a really interesting journey and such a great show and so much heart and incredible people. We got like 5 Green Room Award nominations, and we were the only independent show nominated for Production of the Year against like all the major commercial shows. So it was a great success. So that was a really special time. And again, like working in independent spaces, you can really take risks and
definitely
be non-commercial, and it's such a great exciting space.
It's a great payoff. Yeah.
Like we're doing some wild things with Natasha Pierre.
Love
and
it.
people are going to come
it.
and see it, and I'm sure some people will be like, what is this?
Yes.
But I think that piece kind of asks you to approach it in that way rather than
definitely
approach it like it's, Sound of Music. So
yeah, exactly. There was something both of you said that was in kind of like both of your things, which I'm picking up on more and more, is how much you care for change and diversity and diverse casting as well. And it kind of leads right into my big question I ask is, how do you think theatre's changed in recent years, and how has that impacted the work that you do or the work that you create?
Sure. Why not? I think, there's obviously just a lot more social consciousness these days as well. Things like mental health awareness as well when it comes to the arts. You know that
I'm a big advocate for things like that.
Yeah, that old saying that the show must go on no matter what. These days, we're kind of re-navigating that, deciding what that means to us is because we're artists and performing is our job, or the directing or being creative is our job, but we're also people as well.
Yeah.
So I think coming from that perspective when approaching projects or things is really important. And I think that's a new direction for us as well. And in terms of the social consciousness, things like consent, which is wild to me that maybe even just a few years ago, there wasn't such things as intimacy practices and intimacy guidelines.
Yeah, I've had this conversation like heaps of times and I think it was only a few years ago that I first saw the term like intimacy coordinator. And then I've just kept seeing it and I had to finally asked someone, I was like, sorry, is this new? Or has this always just been here but no one's ever like approached it before?
Yeah, totally. So things like that, which I don't know if I take it for granted now, but I'm like, oh, this should be normal. Like this is the expectation.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's part of like, if we're going to create change in the industry, it's about doing it and making sure that we're creating safe spaces so that we can all exist together. And that's why, the intimacy workshops are incredible. Shout out to Bailey Turner from Creative Consent. Look her up on Instagram and on the internet. We've been working with Bailey as a consultant on this show.
Okay.
And we even we started on day one with a workshop with Bailey and conversations around gender identity and consent and up-rolling and de-rolling. And it was such a great way to start a process of a show because it meant that we were all equalized. We all had an agreement on language that we used in the room.
Yeah.
And it just meant that from then on, no one needs to be scared about making a mistake or, we always have protocols for consent so that we don't do the wrong thing, and if we do, there's also a process of like how we address that. So it just means that we can just feel freer and more creative, and you don't feel like, oh, I can't do this because I might make a mistake. I might say the wrong thing. I feel like
that's something that is like has been a thing for me personally, because it's I think like for a few people it is that fear of putting the wrong foot out and then just getting hammered for it. But I love that idea of creating a safe space that if you do get something wrong, you can just like rectify it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And also being empowered enough as a person to say, like, know your boundaries and know what you need and what you can ask from people and for people so that you can do the best job that you can do.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say, oh, it's so limiting and blah, 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 but I haven't found it to be limiting at all because if anything, you know what the boundaries are, you know what your parameters are, and you can always be creative and play within that.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why if someone says, oh, these are my boundaries and don't go beyond that you're like, oh, well, now we can't do anything.
Oh, I hate when people
like it's really not
me.
that hard and it's not limiting at all.
No,
and
you're not asking too much,
and
are you?
it's all of the processes are so easy to take on board.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've kind of look around the room sometimes and I see cast members doing little check-ins with each other.
That's
and
cool.
it's just become a habit and a practice, and it's really easy to do. And it just means that you do it and then you move past and
it
it's
just
really
makes
easy.
the work better. Makes
It
the work
does.
easier.
I love
'cause
that.
We just want our job to, feel fun.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Drama free, ideally.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big, that the focus on mental health and consent and language is so important. Also, discussions around gender identity. In our company, we have many people we have many gender diverse folk in our cast.
Yeah.
And it's really important that we make sure that it's a safe space for them to exist in. And because that doesn't really happen a lot in music theatre, especially in the way roles are generally cast, very much within a binary and, people who are assigned a certain gender at birth play that role, even if they don't identify in that way.
Yeah.
It feels really important to be breaking ground there and inviting more people into the space to bring more of themselves to something and not only part of themselves.
Yeah,
definitely.
totally.
I love that question because every single person I ask has a different answer and it never goes the way I think it will. And I love it. I love it so much. So thank you so much for that. That was amazing. I would like...
It's time for today's Lucky Land horoscope with Victoria Cash.
Life's gotten mundane, so shake up the daily routine and be adventurous with a trip to Lucky Land. You know what they say, your chance to win starts with a spin. So go to LuckyLandSlots.com to play over 100 social casino-style games for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Get lucky today at LuckyLandSlots.com.
Available to players in the U.S., excluding Washington and Michigan. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply.
To wrap up by doing our 1 minute theatre thoughts question.
Yes.
Fun.
If that's
Amazing.
okay.
Let's go.
Cool. Okay. So the way it generally works is we'll do, because there's both of you, we'll do one question and then, one answer.
Okay.
You're going first, by the way, for all of them.
Yeah, there you go. And then we'll just see how many we can kind of crack out in a minute, I suppose.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
What's been your favourite production you've seen recently?
The Lucky Country.
I was going to say The Lucky Country too.
I think that's mine as well.
Lucky Country video making at the Hayes Theatre. But before that, also Julia at STC.
Oh, I didn't
STC at the Opera House.
Okay, I missed that.
Fantastic. It was a beautiful play.
Yeah. Lucky
Justin
Country
Clark.
as well?
Lucky Country for many, many reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By far one of the best ones this year for sure.
Yeah.
What's your go-to karaoke song?
I don't know if I have one,
Oh,
but
really?
if I do, it'd probably be like an ABBA song.
Yes.
Fun.
Love it.
I'm normally not a solo singer at karaoke. I will just join in the group. So
Yeah, the
whatever the
group
group
numbers.
chooses, I will participate.
Who inspired you as a young artist?
Audrey McDonald.
Yes.
Oh, so many people. I, at a very young age, started reading about Harold Prince as a director
Yes,
and
fun.
was trying to watch as much, documentaries and read books and things about him. So, yeah, Harold Prince.
Amazing. And the last one is, which production would you most like to see come to Australia and why?
Natasha, Pierre, the Great Comet 1812.
Well, here it's coming soon.
Yeah, whoa, it's coming. What? It's here next month. Wow.
No.
We should buy some tickets.
Hades Town.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna
Oh my
say
God,
that.
Thank you. I say that on every single podcast, and I feel like if I say it enough and
It'll
I put it out in
happen.
the atmosphere,
At
it'll come
the
back to
Darlinghurst
us.
Theatre Company.
Yes.
Yes, I feel like that would be the perfect space for it.
It
I either
would
think
be.
that or the Theatre Royal, either one of those two.
Definitely an
spaces.
intimate space.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It can't be big, not Capital, not Lyric. Darlinghurst actually would be.
Yeah, and
Oh,
don't watch a
yeah.
bootleg. Wait,
No,
till
no,
it-
no.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm saying this to the listeners. I'm always that person that's like, don't watch the bootlegs.
watch
Don't
it,
listen to
yeah.
the cast recording. Experience the show because
Yeah.
I saw it on Broadway, maybe it was like the year it had opened and I didn't know anything about it other than the one Tony Awards performance, which I thought didn't really represent the show at all. And I sat in that theatre and was so mesmerised and like I did not sit back in my seat. I was like leaning forward with my jaw on my lap for that whole show and such an experience.
I think I stopped watching bootlegs like when I left uni because like I think I was in this period where I just wanted to see all this amazing stuff that was coming, and then I was about to go to New York, so I was like, no, I'm not going to watch a bootleg. I'm going to actually go see it instead. And now I just don't because like you just never know when it'll come, and I just don't want it to have like that solidified version in my mind.
It is tricky though when we're all the way across the pond.
You're totally,
and
you're just like, I want to see it.
To jump on a plane and go to New York.
No, you can't.
And as a young person, like that's how we connect, which is lovely. But come see our show instead of the bootleg because it's actually coming.
Yes, exactly.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for both of you jumping on and giving us your time
thank you.
To talk about the show. I'm really excited to come and see it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Bye.
A massive thank you to Dean Drieberg and Grace Driscoll for joining us as our guests on the podcast. A massive thanks to Jade Yee for helping to organise today's episode. Tickets for Natasha, Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812 can be purchased by heading to darlinghursttheatre.com/The Great Comet. We'll be back at Meraki Arts Bar on Tuesday the 11th of July to talk with the team at Queen Hades Productions and their performance of Tough Titties. Follow the link in our episode's description to book your tickets. This episode was produced by Echidna Audio. Follow them on Instagram at Echidna Audio for all their audio services. Once again, if you enjoyed our podcast, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts and head to the link in this episode's description for our Instagram account, TikTok, YouTube, and Patreon. My name's Justin Clark, and I'll see you next time here on the Theatre Thoughts Podcast.
Have you ever wondered how your favorite performer actually feels? Well, here's your chance. Welcome to The Quiet Part Out Loud with me, Bobby Steggert, Broadway actor and now a therapist to a whole host of Broadway creatives. Part interview, part therapy, this is not your typical podcast. We'll go right to the heart of things with some of your favorite artists, what they still struggle with, what lessons they've learned, what they haven't figured out yet. There's enormous power in saying the quiet part out loud. Are you listening?
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.